Hello, and welcome to Phantom Zone, the podcast where we dredge the lakes of hell in search of the worst the cinematic world has to offer. And once we view the films, we then put them on trial for their various crimes against humanity. If a film is found not guilty, it's free to frolic freely for the rest of its days. If a film is found guilty, then we jettison it into the far, far reaches of space, a Phantom Zone, if you will. I'm your host, Adrian Torres, and joining me, as always, is my good buddy and co-host, Scott Daly. How are you doing today, Scott?
I'm doing very good, Adrian. I am really excited about what we're doing this week. We had to change things up a little bit, but I think it's going to be a good one.
It's going to be okay. Our guest for this week, unfortunately, had a scheduling conflict. She did not back out because she listened to the last episode and thought, I do not want to watch any of these films.
Although I would not blame her if that's what she did.
That I think we need a couple more guests for that to sink into people's minds. Again, it's not because of us, it's because of the films. So I hope.
Or so they say.
We'll find out. Have you talked to Dee Dee this week?
Yeah, because I got in an argument on her Facebook about 28 days later with Hanson.
Then she's okay with us.
Yeah.
But yes, so we have moved things around, and we moved a couple people back, and we found a spot for her to fit in mid-December. So we've got this episode now. We're not going to have anything next week because it's Thanksgiving. You know, everybody needs to take some time off. Watch bad movies with your family. You know, maybe we'll have a couple to suggest for you. And then we're going to come back the last week in November, and we're going to have Sarah Jane from Talk Film Society as our guest. She is fantastic. She has a whole bunch of kaiju stuff that she read. She's got a section that I'm going to try to get the name correct, but it's underappreciated and underseen, where she goes over several movies that you may have never heard of or may have seen years ago and completely forgot about and should give another chance to. So she's going to be our guest at the end of the month, and then we're going to keep on rolling. But because we're towards the end of the year, Scott and I had an idea that we were going to do next month, and we just moved it up to now, which we're, of course, covering a whole bunch of bad films, but we don't do lots of mainstream bad films. That's usually for good reason, because you want movies to kind of have some time to breathe before you really put them on the chopping block, like to shoot into the Phantom Zone. Sometimes we're reactionary, and that's me. I know Scott and I have talked about this off the air, but there's times that when you see people go completely in one direction, saying, I hated it, that's the worst thing I've ever seen, directly after viewing it, or saying, oh my God, this movie is an absolute 100% masterpiece, it's the best film ever made, directly after seeing it, it feels very reactionary.
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely recency bias. There's a tendency to think strongly one way or another about the things that you've just seen.
Yes. And so we're looking at films that came out earlier in the year, or, you know, some of them may have been recent, but we thought we'd have fun discussing those for having just a short episode going over several movies, that a couple that Scott and I both really disliked, a couple that we saw on our own that we disliked, and then there's plenty of other movies that have very much been in the consciousness of the last year because people absolutely hated them, but Scott and I missed. So we're going to have a fun little rapid fire round at the very end, where we're going to prejudge these films based upon either word of mouth that we've heard, Rotten Tomatoes scores, or just the actual plot of the film.
Yeah, that's going to be fun.
Yeah, I'm excited for it. So, Scott, let's go with one that I guess I hadn't seen that you really disliked.
Okay, so that I'm going to start with The Snowman.
Ooh.
This is a movie that came out just last month, I think. Yeah, October. It's a crime drama based off of a novel, a Norwegian novel of the same name, about a serial killer that uses snowmen in his killings. I don't really understand exactly.
You don't understand, or you don't remember?
I remember. The movie is a mess, and it's very confusing. It's directed by Tomas Alfredson, who who also did Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy, Let the Right One In. So, you know, I mean, not terrible films, but this is a just disaster of a movie. It has Michael Fassbender in it, who is starring as the main character, Harry Hole. Yes, that's the character's name, is Harry Hole.
Wow.
And it's just like, it's weirdly directed. The story is nonsense. You jumps back and forth in time, back to another detective investigating this case a few years ago, played by Val Kilmer.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. I just looked up on IMDb and I'm like, hold on a second. You're burying the lead. This has Val Kilmer in 2017, and it's one of the worst reviewed movies of the film.
Yeah.
I think I smell the sardines going on.
Well, and see, that's the weird thing about it, because, yeah, the Val Kilmer role is a disaster. And it's like, you can tell, like, he barely speaks, and when he does speak, he's dubbed by a terrible voice.
What?
And yeah. So I was like shocked in the theater. I was like, I couldn't believe what was going on. And I looked into this. Apparently he had throat cancer. And so while he was filming, he literally could not speak. So instead of just cutting him out of the movie entirely because his entire thing is irrelevant and doesn't actually matter, they tried to work around it. So there's some scenes when he's clearly dubbed, and every time he's talking, like it tries really hard for the camera to be behind him, so it's like looking at his back, so you can't see the fact that it's very poorly dubbed. And then there's other weird scenes where, like, you can tell there was dialogue at some point, but they just cut it out. So it's just these weird, like long shots where people are just standing there looking at each other and not talking. It's so strange. It's so weird. The story is nonsense. This is a mess of a film. It's really awful.
Supposedly 15% of the screenplay was never filmed?
Wow, that actually makes sense.
That would.
There's the serial killer that like leaves scary looking snowmen everywhere he goes, but it doesn't make any sense. Like the motivation is there, and there's of course a big twist at the end of it because it's a crime mystery thriller type thing, but it's all very confused and weird. You just don't buy it. You don't buy any of these characters. You don't understand them. The book that this is based on is part of a series, the Harry Hole detective series. And the movie kind of treats it as if you're supposed to know that and know who Harry Hole is already. And of course, I've never read any of these books, so I did not have a clear picture of who this guy was at all.
I mean, let's be honest. It's famously known that you don't know how to read.
Yeah, I mean that is true. That is true. I never bothered to learn. That's why I can't watch foreign films. It's really tough. But yeah, it's a total mess of a movie. My favorite part of the movie, like throughout the movie, we're seeing these creepy looking snowmen everywhere. And at one point we see a normal looking snowman, and Michael Fassbender kind of like looks at it suspiciously, but it's just a normal looking snowman. So he's like, okay. And then the camera like slowly swings around the snowman, and on the back side of the normal snowman is the creepy looking killer snowman. And the music goes, dun. And it's just like, I burst out laughing in the theater because
there's way too much time spent on that.
Yes. It's awful. It's so bad. I like crime stories. I like crime novels. I think I'm going to give the book a try, but damn, this was bad.
Yeah. That sounds terrible. Do you want to send it into the Phantom Zone?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Well, there we go. That's easy enough. It's gone. It's bye-bye.
The only redeeming factor it has, I think, is exploring how weird Val Kilmer is in this movie. Like for a second there, I was like, "Is that Val Kilmer?"
I mean, can't you just do that in real life? Though,
at
this point, like, do we need a movie that's like, "Hey, we're exposing how weird Val Kilmer is"?
Yeah, I mean that's very true. And I feel bad because obviously, if he had cancer, I don't want to make fun of him for it, but the movie, like the fact that the movie, instead of working, like shifting and changing, just trying to work around it, is like indicative of the mess of the film in general. Yeah,
I know it sounds terrible either way.
How about you? You got one that I haven't seen?
Oh yeah, I've got plenty. I'll go back to like the very beginning of the year, and with what's it called, 50 Shades Darker.
I can't believe you saw that movie.
Yeah, I even wrote a review of it. The movie is, I'm trying to think of the right way that doesn't sound like too mean, but then again, we're talking about 50 Shades Darker, so you can be as mean as you want. There's a part where it's like halfway through the movie where Christian is like, "Oh yeah, we can't keep you here. It's not safe." And this happens after whoever the lead character. I don't care enough to know anybody but one person's name in the film. But the girl, her car is vandalized. And so Christian guy is like, "Hey, we need to go somewhere more secure." And first of all, I'm like, okay, you're way the fuck high up in this high-rise building. They were only able to get into the garage. And you're deciding we need to get out of here because we're not safe. The place that he decides to take her that's more safe is his personal, like, 3-person yacht.
Oh, of course.
And I'm like, okay, you've got the giant high-rise. You've got, like, 7 security guards with you. But the boat that no one has been at for hours, that's on the water. Yeah, that's the safe place to go. And then it becomes a travelogue for like 15 minutes of the film. Like they're just on a boat and it's just to be like, "Hey, look, the Northwest is a pretty place." It's like the movie is like it's painful. And I can't even remember like every single thing that happened. So like that's why I'm going over and I'm like reading parts of like my review and I'm laughing, being like, "Oh shit, that actually did happen." And it has like the most cliched moments that you would ever expect in a film, to a point where I thought like the movie was going to become self-aware, but no, I wasn't lucky enough. And that's when Kim Basinger's in the movie, because she's the person who originally taught the main dude about BDSM and everything like that. And and there's a point where the dude walks up to her after he's professed his complete and undying love to this other girl and is like, "You taught me to fuck. Anna taught me to love."
Oh my God.
And I was like, this is 2017. People have been making jokes about shit like that in movies for years. And you've now made it an actual thing. It's an actual moment in your film for the rest of the time. That's what you put in your movie. We're also talking about a movie in which you see Christian says that he's going on a business trip. The next scene is him in a helicopter with his business partner, and they're flying over like a volcano and stuff. And next thing you know, they're like, "Oh no, something's wrong with the helicopter." It then cuts to them watching like the main girl and Christian's family watching TV because the helicopter apparently has crashed and they've got rescue workers on the scene trying to look for him and the other lady. And while they're watching this, Christian walks in through the door with like a little bit of dirt on his face. And everybody's like, "Oh, thank God you're okay." And I'm like, you crashed in a helicopter with another person. Apparently you have abandoned them in the middle of nowhere, and you walked all the way back through civilization because you were up in the mountains, and you walked all the way to downtown Seattle without calling anybody. It just was like, what's everybody doing?
Wow.
I'm not one of the richest men in the entire world who just had a crash. There's no big deal. And it's just like the whole thing tries to play up everything to be so big. And of course, for the people who don't know and have been living under a rock, the whole crux to the 50 Shades of Grey series is that it started out as somebody who was writing Twilight fan fiction, and then they turned it into a series of books. And the whole hook was basically Twilight was really coy and chaste and didn't really have this, any sex until on the wedding night at the end, partly because of what Stephanie Myers wrote Twilight, correct?
Yeah, correct.
But because of her background and everything and her religious background, and that's what tied into it, and that's why there were so many people who really liked it. And then the lady who I think it's like E.L. James, who did the 50 Shades one, she wanted to go in the opposite direction. It was like, we're going to put sex, and everybody's going to go crazy, but none of the sex is sexy at all, especially in the movie, because you're just like, I don't know why this is supposed to be tawdry, because it's not.
I have never seen one of those movies. I tried to read the first book, and I made it 2 pages in, and I laughed myself out of that book. It's like I didn't even get to a sex scene. It's just so terribly written. It's awful.
Yeah. No. The first movie was bad enough. The second one is just far worse.
Well, they keep making a shit ton of money, and they're making the third one. So here we go.
That's part of why it popped into my mind.
Yeah.
That one's definitely going into the fantasy zone.
That seems fair.
What was another one that you had that we didn't both collectively have?
Did you not see Valerian?
Well, I saw Valerian.
Okay.
I think I liked that a little bit more than you, because I was 50% on Valerian.
Yeah, I was pretty down on that. But okay, so I'll talk about one you haven't seen. I'm going to talk about the Death Note. Do you see Death Note?
No, I still haven't watched it. I know it's on Netflix, but it's when it comes to things like Death Note, I'm not going to go in and watch like the entire anime series, but I do at least want to watch like the original trilogy or quadrilogy, the live action ones that they had.
Yeah, I have not seen those. I did,
which are produced by Warner Brothers overseas.
Yeah, I did watch the original anime. I do not like anime. I think it's mostly bad. And but we did a podcast where Matt, one of our other hosts, had me watch part of Death Note, and then we talked about it, and I talked about the parts of it I liked and all the anime-y parts of it that I hated. And then so this came out, so I thought I'd give it a try to see if maybe they fixed the bad anime-esque parts and turned it into something good. And they did not. This is such a terrible movie. I like Adam Wingard a lot, who directed this. I think he's a very skilled director, and I don't know what he was doing here. And I understand it's inherently a difficult property to adapt, because the whole thing with Death Note, if you don't know, the concept of Death Note is.
No, I know.
I'm speaking to the audience.
For the people. For the people
for the people at home.
They might know too.
They might.
I think you're insulting them. That's not very nice.
I don't care. I'm going to insult them.
They also have the Google, and they can check that.
The guy gets a book. He can write names down in it, and if he writes a name down, the person dies. That's the basic concept. He uses it.
It's a blank notebook.
Yeah, it's a blank notebook. Yeah. He writes a name down. They die. There's a demon attached to the notebook. Like a god of death that's played by Willem Dafoe, who is good in the movie, but underused.
It's just his voice, correct?
Yeah. It's his voice on a CG character that they're not very confident in the CG because they always hide him in shadows, which is good because it's not very good.
Didn't have enough money.
Lakeith Stanfield is in this movie, and he's great. He plays a detective that's investigating the main character and trying to find who's the guy that's killing all these people. He's really wonderful.
That's what I've heard. But I've heard that it's one of those that his performance kind of feels as if it belongs in an entirely different film.
Yeah, it does. He's the only one that I think understands that he's in an anime adaptation and he's acting like it. And it's weird that he's my favorite part of it when I don't like anime, but I think it's just because he's a very good actor, and B, understands what type of movie he's in. And everything else is a mess. They added there's a female character in the anime as well, and she's the very stereotypical annoying anime female character. They kind of took that character and tried to rise her to prominence in this story, and make her more important to the story, which is good, but they did it in the worst way possible, where instead of this morality tale where this guy's trying to decide if killing people that are bad is the right thing to do or not, and they just made it about he's all doing this to attract this girl, and it's so annoying. It's such a stupid thing to do. It's a dumb movie.
Now, do you think that part of this has to do with Wingard not having Simon Barrett along this go?
It could be. It could be.
Because I wonder if the two of them worked to like. I wonder if they've got a weird symbiosis so that when they're working on something, having the two of them together, they're able to talk things out.
Yeah.
The reason I mentioned that is because also this year, Barrett had one of the few screenplays that he's written where he hasn't worked with Wingard that came out that was called Temple. And I guess that wasn't supposed to be very good at all from what I heard. So the year that they split up and one of them directs something without the other one and the other one goes and writes something without the other one, both end up being films that aren't really well received. So I mean, that's an interesting point to bring up.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about that. But the tone is one of the biggest problems with this thing, and it's not in the writing. It's in Wingard's direction. It's how he some scenes are hilarious when they shouldn't be.
Because if you have somebody that you work really well with and can be like, well, I really think you need to keep this in, or that you can work with, that you're both in sync and that you both want the product to be a certain way, that's what I'm curious about. How's the music?
I honestly don't remember.
Okay, that's interesting because that's what I noticed on IMDb when I was just looking it up, is that Atticus Ross did it. And the reason I mentioned that, of course, is because we're talking about people being split up and everything. And, of course, Atticus Ross has had success in the last several years when he's been working with Trent Reznor on doing, Fincher films. And yet it was just Atticus Ross and his brother working on this one. So that's why I wondered if that was another thing, that maybe this is just a lost movie of people trying to do things on their own and not working as well.
Yeah, I don't tend to notice score unless it's really good or really bad. So, and I don't really remember it. So I think it was fine.
Yeah. Okay, I've got one that you probably never even heard of. It's called Enter the Warrior's Gate.
Yep. Nope. Don't know what that is.
Oh, yeah. No. It's a terrible film. It's a terrible film that feels like it belongs in the 90s. And the reason I say that is because it's clearly a 3 or 4 different countries got together and were like, oh yeah, let's take these elements of films that work in several countries, not really put anybody that's got a name in it, and maybe it'll appeal to kids. And that's because Dave Bautista is the biggest name that's in it. And I'm trying to get onto Rotten Tomatoes to give you the percentage on it. And because I know that it's not going to be very good, because the whole idea is that there is this white kid. That's all he needs to know right there, that things are not in good hands. But you've got a white kid who plays a video game all the time. His mom's constantly telling him that he needs to do better and not play video games as much. But then it turns out that the video game actually has a Last Starfighter type component where, because this kid's really good, people are seeking him out thinking that he's an actual warrior. And so they have a princess who ends up getting stuck on in the realm of humans, and this white kid has to take care of her while this evil, he's not really a sorcerer, he's just kind of a big brute who's been taking over a whole bunch of cities and is trying to marry the princess so he can become ruler. And then they end up going back into that world as opposed to just staying in the real world. And it's just it's tonally flat the whole time. And there's a couple scenes where David Bautista is trying to use his chemistry, but when he's trying to use it is really weird, because he does have an assistant who keeps on killing people when David Bautista is trying to be like, oh, just maim them or bring them over to me. And there's a point where I couldn't tell if David Bautista was acting or literally asking this other actor what was going on, because he goes up to him and he goes, do you really not understand the concept of the conversation that we were just having? Because it seems like you don't really understand. I'm like, is this in the script, what is happening here, but it reeks of such a cloying attempt to get back at those movies in the 90s. You know, like think of the shittiest version of the Page Master that you can, crossed with the shittiest version of the 90s Double Dragon film.
Oh wow, Jesus!
And that's where this is, and it none of it works.
Was this in theaters?
And it came out. Came out in like 2 to 3 theaters. It came out all around the world. Surprisingly, it has a 50% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah, but look how many people reviewed it.
Yeah, only like 10. I mean, come on. Here's somebody who's I'm a big fan of, reviewing wise. Brian Orndorff, who said, "Lumbering and unfunny. The feature is aimed at 10-year-olds and perhaps nobody else." Yeah.
Well, that sounds great. I will be sure not to watch that.
Yes. The Hollywood Reporter had somebody who said, "There are few moments in Warriors Gate that seasoned viewers will not recognize for what they are the minute they happen." That feels like a succinct description of the movie because I don't even know what that means.
Yeah, I'm not sure I know what that means either. No. It's a rough sentence.
Here, this is basically what I was trying to get at. Somebody from the South China Morning Post. Very specific name there. You know that they probably have a good feeling for these types of films. And they say, "The Warriors Gate plays like a relic from a bygone past, when broad Asian stereotypes were commonplace and went largely unchecked."
Huh. Okay.
That gives you the idea.
There you go.
Gives you the idea of this film.
Yeah.
So that's not. Now there were several movies that we were very adamant about pointing out that we had both seen. So I want to start with the one that still has some of the most bizarre plot points in a film this year that's aimed at children. Would you like to guess which film I'm talking about?
I was trying to come up with a joke. It's Boss Baby. It's Boss Baby.
Yes. It's Boss Baby. It is Boss Baby. Now, you said that you saw this not in a traditional setting.
No, I was on an airplane coming back from Europe from my honeymoon, and I was trying to find something to do, and Boss Baby was on my little seat TV. So I watched it. Out of
all the options you had, you decided to watch Boss Baby.
I mean, I watched like 5 movies. I don't even remember what they all were, but I remember that this was one of them.
That's the thing. You can't remember what the other ones were, but Boss Baby is the one that sticks out in your mind.
Boss Baby is a very memorable film.
Would you, before we start mentioning the film, would you like to guess what it has on Rotten Tomatoes?
I'm going to guess.
You'd be surprised.
I'm going to guess 47%.
Higher.
73.
What the fuck? That's a giant jump.
That's how you do statistics, man. You go really low and then you go really high.
You have never watched Price is Right, have you?
Well, you didn't tell me closest without going over. That changes everything.
Well, no, but I said higher. So it's 52.
It's not bad.
50, for the movie and for like the shit that's going on in this movie. It's a movie that like the movie suffers from ADD. I understand that there might be some children in the audience who have ADD, but then the movie itself, when it's like, hey, how would you feel if we have one scene where there's 7 different animation styles for no reason?
Yeah. I don't know. I did not hate this movie.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, it's not good, but I think it's just weird enough to be fun. Like, it's ridiculous, and it has Alec Baldwin as a talking baby.
Hey, Scott, remind me of what the central plot of this movie is.
Well, you see, there's this corporation of boss babies, and they're trying to ensure...
We do have 2 clips.
Yeah, I don't know if you want me to play them.
Well, I mean, you can play the first one because then we can piece in leading into the second one. I think that's the easiest thing. Let the movie try to explain itself.
All right.
A puppy that never grows up.
No, that's the wrong one. Damn it. This is the first one.
You see, babies aren't getting as much love as we used to.
Why?
Behold our mortal enemy. puppies. Aww. No, that's exactly the problem. This is war. Puppies are winning, and babies are losing.
Yeah. So this is the second time the movie brings this up, because before there's a very elongated and annoying scene at Baby Corp, which is, I guess, in heaven, is where it looks like it's supposed to take place, where they have a giant meeting. First of all, it turns out that everyone who works at Baby Corp is a baby because of pacifiers that they have that keeps them forever young. So they could be hundreds of years old, but they look young because they've got their binkies.
Yes.
But there is a quarterly earnings meeting that they have, which has a pie chart showing how much love babies are getting. And the baby ratio is down and the dog ratio has gone up. And they are very worried because the more that their description is the more that people love dogs, the less likely parents are to ever want to have children.
I mean, look, they're dealing with modern day issues. People are having less babies. It's a fact of life now.
This is a movie that's calling out and saying that if you love a dog, you're basically killing children and you're terrible. You have to choose one or the other. And then they double down by having the fact that the villain of the movie is a former boss baby who has stolen the serum to keep people, or to keep the babies young who work for Baby Corp, and has decided to turn it into a product.
A puppy that never grows up, never gets old. A puppy that stays a puppy forever. I give you the only thing you'll ever love. The Forever Puppy!
They have him say, the only thing you will ever love.
Yeah. It's a forever puppy. You're telling me if you had a puppy, that you'd stayed a puppy forever, you wouldn't love it.
That's not the issue here.
Well, but look, this is a ridiculous, absurdist movie that is basically just a young child dealing with a new kid in his life. And
no, you explained a very small portion of the film.
That's the central conceit of the movie, is that he's a guy who turns out to be a writer who wrote this complicated story about how his new brother came into being. That's what the movie's about. Yes, it does these weird, funny, goofy things because he's like the imagination of a child, but that's what the movie's about.
Except for it's not the imagination of a child, because it's adult Tobey Maguire telling the story. And the story that he's telling, the story that he's telling involves the fact that there was a corporation that his kids that he's talking to, their grandparents worked for, that was trying to create a forever puppy, which was threatening the world from ever having children again.
Yeah, I mean, it's absurd. It's absurdist. That's why it's funny.
It's more than absurd. It's genuinely fucked up. Like, you can have a kid's movie and do stupid stuff in it, but this is somebody who sat down and was like, this story is very dear to my heart. I need to make sure that I get this message in there. Because, I mean, that's not – because you're making choices. You're not just like – you're not saying, oh, we just have a baby that talks. And we don't just have this baby corporation. Oh, but what's the baby corporation going to deal in? I mean, you think of something that happened – the movie that they had the year before, the Storks film, right? Mm-hmm. Which is dealing with where babies come from, and one that accidentally got left behind and grows up and yada, yada, yada. And they don't go into anything as dark or sinister as this plot line.
I cannot believe you're calling it dark and sinister. It is a joke. It is a stupid joke about how babies and puppies are cute and they have to compete for cuteness. That's all it is. I really think you're taking it too seriously.
The Baby Corp has the scene where they mention that it's going to be the end of their business and the end of babies as they know it, because people will only choose to love dogs as opposed to have kids. And they make a point saying that people will stop having kids if they have the forever puppy.
Yeah, because it's the perspective of a child saying where babies come from.
It's the perspective of an adult telling a story to kids of when he was a kid.
Yeah,
it's not.
He's telling a children's story.
I
can't believe we're arguing about Boss Baby. This is
not a children's story. Would just be that the baby showed up and the allegory of the fact that the baby showing up made him feel like he was being loved less by his parents, which is only about 15 minutes of a movie that's an hour and 45 minutes long.
Yeah, but I mean,
because that's what the book's about. And you can easily have it just be like the first summer or the first year, with the kid. That totally makes sense. And then they go off on this, whole thing.
The whole thing is the kid is like a kid with super high imagination, and it's constantly imagining these high, intense adventures. And then another kid comes and he imagines a scenario in which that's another thing, another battle he has to fight to win his parents back. And he extrapolates it out into this ridiculous, absurdist adventure. That's what the movie is. That's what the movie is.
No. I can't believe you're defending Boss Baby.
I'm not. It's not a very good movie, but it's cute. It does what it wants to do.
You sound like somebody who would like the movie Fluke.
I don't know what that is.
We've talked about that one. That's the one where Matthew Modine dies and comes back as a dog.
No, I don't like coming back as dog movies. Yeah. I don't like that.
Yeah. He comes back as a dog, goes to see his family because he's like, oh, I want to make sure they're okay. And basically keeps on hanging around so that they adopt him. And then he realizes, oh, wait, I was a real shitty dad. And then abandons his family because he realizes what a bad dad he was by taking the dog away from the entire family. Then gets kidnapped at a pharmaceutical company. Becomes friends with the dog, who's voiced by Samuel L. Jackson. Samuel L. Jackson's dog dies. The main dog lives on the street for a bit, becomes friends with other dogs, and once he feels his life is back on track at the very end of the movie, sees a squirrel who's also voiced by Samuel L. Jackson, because the dog that he was friends with earlier, when he died, became reincarnated as a squirrel.
Well, that sounds a little ridiculous.
Yeah. And yet, Boss Baby's totally fine because it's an absurdist comedy.
I didn't say it was fine. I just said I think you're taking it too seriously, and you're turning what's just a stupid little silly absurdist plotline into a dark, ominous death of all babies thing.
That's what the movie says.
Adrian,
that's part of their thing.
Babies don't really work in an office building. That's not real.
I understand that. That's not the problem I had. I'm talking about the person who came up with that element of the story.
But that's not real within the world of the story either. It's part of what a child would imagine a problem for a baby who works in a corporation would have.
Part of the reason that they're going on the journey to get their parents is because of this forever puppy. Because the parents work at Puppy Co.
Yeah.
So it's not a manifestation.
Okay, you're right. Everything in the movie actually happened.
Well, no, but I'm saying that if that's what it is yes, I understand that the Baby Co thing might not be an actual thing, but at the same time, key plot points hinge upon the whole Puppy Co business that their parents work for, which is run by a former big fat boss baby. Literally the name of the character, voiced by Steve Buscemi, that then ties back into the Baby Core. So yeah, it is a thing.
Okay. The framing device of the movie is Tobey Maguire telling a story to his children. I don't think we can say that.
And his younger brother is the boss baby.
Yeah. I can't believe you forced me to defend Boss Baby. I did not
I
see
didn't
that
force
happening.
you. You're the one who ended up doing that.
Well, because like it's not a good movie, but I just think we should attack it for the right reasons. Which is
because it's a terrible film, and that's one of the reasons.
Which is that as much as it is.
So you saw
cute,
Transformers, right?
Yeah. Transformers is a really bad movie.
Transformers, it's almost as bad for different reasons.
Boss Baby is way better than Transformers.
I don't think I would ever say that. They're both equally terrible.
Yeah, it's like
Do you really want Boss Baby to be the hill that you die on?
I'm not dying on any hills. I think Boss Baby has a 52% of Rotten Tomatoes. That seems fair to me.
No. 52 seems way too high. Way too high.
How much does Transformers have?
That's what I'm looking up right now.
It has a 15%. It's way worse than Boss Baby.
Just by going the barometer of Rotten Tomatoes.
Rotten Tomatoes gets it right every once in a while, and there is more to like in
that's
Baby.
essentially like saying that Armand White gets it right like once out of every 2 times.
How is once out of every 2 times? I didn't say that. I said every once in a while, Rotten Tomatoes gets it right.
Yes, and Armand White is always contrarian, so there should never be a time that he's right.
I don't know how those two things are related to each other.
I'm just saying that it shouldn't be the entire barometer.
I'm not saying it's the entire barometer. I think Transformers: The Last Night is an unfun slog of a film that hurts my eyes.
Yeah, it's absolutely terrible. Everything about it is pathetic and sad. You want to see an actor who feels very bad about the decisions that he's making in one movie, and then an actor who feels great about the decision he's making in another, then watch Transformers: The Last Night back to back with Thor Ragnarok because of Anthony Hopkins.
I think he's having a great time in Transformers.
In Transformers, he's like, I need to get through the scene as fast as possible.
Well, yes, but I think he's enjoying, like, he's playing off of Cogsman. Is that the name of the stupid robot? Cogsman?
Yeah. Cogsman's the name.
Look, here's the thing.
He's a sex robot. You know it.
Here's the thing about Transformers. You and I have had this conversation before. I don't know if we've had it on air. I find Michael Bay as a filmmaker fascinating. I find the moments in the first 3 Transformers movies interesting in how weird and absurdist they are. They've stopped becoming interesting. Like
Scott.
What?
How many of the Transformers films do you own steelbooks of?
0.
Oh. How many of the Transformers films do you own?
I own 2 of them.
Okay.
I own the first one and I own the third one.
Why the third one?
I don't know. I don't remember. I think I just wanted to see it, and I decided to buy it instead of rent it. I don't know.
It seems like a terrible decision.
I hadn't seen it yet, so I was like...
That sounds like somebody who's saying, I don't know how to manage my money. Will you please manage it for me? And the person that you're asking this question of is Michael Bay.
But I think he's so weird, and the decisions he makes and the things he does fascinate me, but they've stopped being interesting. The last 2 Transformers movies have stopped being so weird that they interest me, and have started just being this mindless slog of nothing interesting is happening. The stupid character of Cade Yeager is the biggest wet blanket character I've ever seen.
Hey, he's an inventor.
The thread of what's happening in the world in these movies is lost. I never have a clear picture on what the state of the world is and what people are doing and why they're doing it. And the tone is just a mess. It's just all over the place. And
the majority of people are dead, I'm pretty sure.
I think so, right? I don't know.
There's only few cities that still exist. I know that most of Los Angeles has been destroyed because they set 2 or 3 of them there. They spent some time in New York. So
I thought they were in
New
Chicago
York's
once
probably
too.
fine.
I think Chicago got destroyed.
Chicago got destroyed in like number 4, I think.
And like this one is all about how Optimus Prime is evil. And I think that's actually cool because if you go back and watch the first 3 Transformers movies, you kind of learn that Optimus Prime is a crazy person that like ruthlessly kills anyone who's against him. And then you're like, oh, so it makes sense that he's evil in this one. Maybe the film is actually doing something interesting. No, he's just brainwashed. And then after 3 minutes, he gets unbrainwashed. And then he's a good guy again. And then they fight the bad guys. And then they win. And then everything explodes.
Well, I mean, you also have to mention that like he's only in the movie for like 10 minutes.
Yeah.
That's another thing. It's not like they keep on, going back to him.
Yeah.
Because it's just I mean it's a film that they didn't screen for critics, but they had a screening set in Kansas City that they then canceled like 2 days ahead of time. And I was set up to have a review that I had to write. So I ended up going to see like an 11:15 showing on a Tuesday evening because they decided they wanted to put it out on a Wednesday so that they could get that extra couple, days of money before people were like, oh, we shouldn't let anyone see this. And I watched the movie and just walked out to the car and couldn't figure out how to write about it. So the review that I wrote was like from basically like a Survivor's.
Yeah, I remember that. That was great. It's
I can I mean just to give an example because it basically sums up what I was feeling. So I'll just read this a little bit quickly and then you can continue to talk about Michael Bay being a very confusing human being who we haven't had any. Have we had Michael Bay sexual allegations yet?
Not yet. I did read this really weird article about how Megan Fox's audition for Transformers was come over to Michael Bay's house and wash his car in a bikini, which is weird, but that's not, I don't think that's getting to sexual assault. That's just a weird Michael Bay
but
thing
I mean
to do.
but it's also harassment.
Yeah, I don't know.
If it's basically saying come over to my house and you have to do this otherwise you don't get to be in the film.
Well, but it's like if you're auditioning, so this gets into really gray territory. If you're auditioning someone who's going to be in a bikini, I don't know.
She's not in a bikini in the film.
She's like he shoots her in the most disgusting way possible. It's weird and gross.
But she's also working on like the engine of the car.
Yeah.
As opposed to she's doing a charity car wash.
She's the only character in the story that has an arc because she's the only one that's actually well written, but the movie ignores it. It's so frustrating.
And then we know how he ends up treating her later on.
Yeah,
so
it's awful. It's awful. Poor Megan Fox. But we were mean to Megan Fox.
Everybody was. At times, she may have deserved it, but not entirely to the level that people.
I think she realized what people wanted, and she capitalized on that to further her career. And I think that's a fine thing to do. I think everyone in the industry does that. And when she decided that she did not want to be that person anymore, people said, "Fuck you," then, and left her behind. And it's bullshit. It's really bullshit. Jennifer's Body is a great movie. Go ahead and read your thing. I'm sorry.
Oh, that's not necessarily because of. I know it'll sound like a weird thing because of the fact that she's, the titular character of the piece, but I think that more of Jennifer's Body works because of the direction by that's Karen Kusama, right?
Yes, and it's Diablo Cody's script. Yeah.
I'm 50-50 on Diablo Cody. It's nothing against her as a person. It's just sometimes I don't always think that her writing works in service of the story. There's more times that I like the story that she's creating as opposed to the dialogue that she tries to lean too far into. But that's Amanda Seyfried's film.
Yeah, she's excellent in it, but I think
it's no, and that's why I'm being very specific to say that it's nothing against Megan Fox in that movie. It's just that's very much of a character that you could have lots of people play. So it's a good film that features her, but I think that you could, but like I said, it's not anything against her. It's just not a role that exists to highlight anybody's particular skill set.
No, but I also think the brilliance of casting Megan Fox is that she's entering this role as someone who is constantly objectified in the things that she's in, and she's entering a role that it literally is existing to objectify her. I mean, the movie's called Jennifer's Body.
But again, like I said, it's not anything that's going to show any discernible range or acting. That's why I'm saying I think it's a different choice, because it's a piece where it's more so because of the person in real life taking that baggage into it is what the movie's playing upon. So it's neither a plus or minus because it's her.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. I don't know if I fully agree with it, but I get it.
Oh, that's okay. But that's a good movie. That's not what we're talking about.
Yeah.
So this terrible review that I'm kind of embarrassed of. I said, first there was silence, then came the screaming. Alone in the darkness, I was shaken to my very core. In front of me was an assault on my senses. This felt personal. The very fabric with which I gauged happiness, wonder, fear, grief, and despair was failing me. My mouth moved to respond to what I saw, but it was in vain. That thought that had already passed and was replaced by a new series of equally baffling images. Try as I might, I was unable to grasp exactly what was occurring. When faced with the destruction of logic and reasoning, simply remembering would be an act of madness. Of course, to think that was possible was simply naive. At the start, there existed a hopeful delusion that there could be the possibility of a newfound grace or nuance, but that was quickly disposed of as nonsense, brutality, and depravity were to rule the day.
I mean, I don't know how else you review that movie in any kind of serious way.
It's all honest, and it's all things that happen in the movie. Is you're literally sitting there and you're going, who is this person? Why are these things happening? Why does my brain hurt? Shia LaBeouf was in one of these movies. Did he die, or is he still alive?
Who knows?
Why is it that Bumblebee can sometimes talk, but then goes back to the other way of talking?
Remember when this series was just about a boy in his car? Remember that?
So that's like, again, you're signaling out like a 15-minute part of a film.
Kind of.
Yeah. You saw the Underworld film, right?
I did.
Okay, that's all we need to talk about there.
Yeah.
That's it. We're on number 5 or 6. The only person I think who remains through any of the films is Kate Beckinsale.
Yeah.
And for a while there, she was still kind of attached because I think her husband was producing part of the movies.
Yeah, that's correct.
I don't know if he still is. This movie's just bad.
Yeah, so I had only seen the first one, and then I watched this because I think it was on HBO or something.
Yeah, I didn't miss anything.
Yeah, I couldn't tell what was going on, but it just seemed like nonsense.
It doesn't matter. They broke it. And the one before Blood Wars, they try to like cover all the movies, and you just don't care. And then it has no bearing on the plot. And she continually mentions Michael, but we never see Michael.
Scott Speedman, right?
Yep. Scott Speedman in the first movie, and then flashbacks of Scott Speedman in the movie before Blood Wars. And then he's replaced by a stunt double then a CGI character. And now he like doesn't exist.
See, the thing that I respected the first Underworld movie for is they made the werewolves all practical, and they didn't look great, but I respected it. And the werewolves were all CG in this movie, so I guess they've given that up along the way.
There were lots of CG werewolf moments in the first one.
There were like some of the long shots, but they used a lot of practical werewolves in that first movie.
Yes, Yeah, but it's still terrible.
But she had a nice winter coat on this time, so it's different because she's got a new outfit.
No. She dies and she comes back, and she has magical powers.
I didn't get any of that. I didn't understand what was happening.
They spent like 5 minutes, and I was just like, it still doesn't make sense. I don't care. So we don't care either. So we are moving on to the next film. I'm trying to see. Oh, Baywatch. We can quickly go over Baywatch.
Yeah.
It's a bad film.
It is.
I mean,
that's kind of what we do here.
It feels like a wrong-headed film that thinks it's doing right.
It's really frustrating. Yeah. That makes perfect sense. It's really frustrating because I think there's a level that this could have been a good movie. And I think maybe if it had come out a few years before when they were still doing these old TV shows to movies things in a good way and people weren't completely sick of them. Because, I mean, like 21 Jump Street is the one you always go back to, which is an actually good adaptation of a TV show no one cares about that made a funny movie. And it's definitely trying to be that. But,
he doesn't understand what made that work.
No, and The Rock he's a good actor. He's got a great screen presence and he can be funny. But this movie doesn't seem to know what to really do with him.
Well, no. One of the most interesting things about this film that lots of people didn't mention, I mean, there were a couple people who touched upon it, but like, I don't think they got to the very heart of it. But they were making a big deal, or the movie makes a big deal about the fact that, hey, we're going to pick on and sexualize things about the men just as much as the women were on the show. Yeah. But they do it in an R-rated movie type of way, so it feels really weird. It's like, I get that you're making the joke, but you're going like way too far. And while you're not sexualizing the women in the way that was kind of fetishized on the TV show, you're also not giving any characteristics to the female characters. You're not making them characters. Half the time they're just standing around, and there's one of them whose job it literally is to like always do points. And it's like, no, you're going to stay behind and you're going to do this. Yep. And we're going to have a character mention what a strong and beautiful person you are. And then we're not going to see you do anything.
Yeah. And Zac Efron's character is such a mess, too. Because, like,
the whole thing's a mess.
You can see what they're kind of trying to... Like, 21 Jump Street was a funny movie that because you actually cared about these two characters by the end of it, the more dramatic scenes when their partnership is kind of broken apart, while it's ridiculous and hilarious and they're kind of turning into it being a relationship type thing, you actually care about the characters. Here, they make Zac Efron's character such a miserable jackass that you just never actually give a shit about him. So like when he hits his low point in the movie, it's just like, I don't care, fuck you. Like you're a dick.
No, I completely agree. I mean, there were lots of films that hit upon that. There was going to be one that I was going to mention, and then we'll get to the rapid fire part, just because it's the prime example of the issues that you have nowadays and trying to kowtow to certain audiences. Is there was the horror film that came out, I think it was like September, maybe beginning of October, but it literally only lasted a couple weeks, was Wish Upon, that was trying to get to the whole Final Destination / different types of horror films from the 90s and early aughts, where there's the girl who finds the ceremonial Chinese wishing box and terrible things happen. But the main character of the film is the most self-centered person to hit the screen in years. They try to have like 1 to 2 people call them out on their actions, and they're like, "Oh, you're right. I should probably, think about what I'm doing." And then they like turn the corner, and somebody's like, "Your hair looks bad today." And next thing you know, the person's like, "Oh, I got to use that box again because that person was a bitch." And you're like, wait, what? You just had the conversation with your friend, and they're like, I don't care anymore. And they do it in like the old Twilight Zone monkey paw type way. So she's like, oh man, I wish I wish this guy would like me. And so the guy does end up wanting to date her, except for he's completely enraptured with her to the point of becoming stalkerish and everything. And but then magically they take his like being in love with her so much to that he wants to get physical with her and becomes forceful. And I was like, wait, what? And then at one point her dad, who's still suffering the effects from when his wife passed away years ago, dumpster dives to sell scrap and grab things so that he can be an artist someday. And the daughter's really embarrassed of him and is like, you know what? I'm just done with this, and goes to her room and wishes for her dad to be more respectable. And her dad shaves the next day and puts on a clean shirt. It's like, oh, everything's better now. It gets so bad to the point that the main character's like, oh my God, I know how to do this. I know exactly the wish that I need to make to set everything right. And she basically goes back in time when she makes she basically changes like the course of a whole bunch of stuff by making the wish. And when she does so, there is a couple items that exist in the world that shouldn't be there since she made this wish. And it's just like, there's no. If she wished for this thing not to have happened, then this thing can't still be there. And it's just like, you just broke the movie. You just broke the movie. Because I know we spoil things on here, and I don't think any of us is going to watch it, but she basically makes the wish that she wishes that her mom hadn't died. And the stupid twist of the movie is that the mom, this lady who you see at the very beginning of the film throwing out the Chinese wishing box, was her mom who made wishes with it. And that's why she ended up dying, because after you make the final wish, the box makes you commit suicide. They don't explain why. It's just that's just what it does.
So wait, she solves all her problems by making a final wish.
Yeah, that she wishes that her mom, didn't die. But the thing is that she wishes that her mom didn't die, but her mom still has paintings of the Chinese wishing box, saying that, oh, even though she didn't die, guess what? She still made all the wishes, which means that she would have died, because that's what the final wish does, is it kills you. So there's no way. So if you decided that if you made the wish that she didn't die, that means that she never would have gotten the Chinese wishing box, which means she wouldn't have had the time to paint a picture of the Chinese wishing box, because she never had possession of it.
Isn't the whole point of like wishing horror movies for you to learn the lesson that wishing away your problems is a bad idea?
Yeah.
Like, isn't that the whole point?
But like I said, this movie doesn't care.
No,
it doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
It basically says, fuck you. This is also a movie that has a literally 2.5 minute cameo by Jerry O'Connell as a major character who's only seen in flashback.
Huh.
Yes.
It's so funny because like in my head I lump this into the same thing as that Happy Death Day horror movie, but it turns out that one was actually good. And well, I haven't seen it, so I can't. This is one of the ones I can't argue with you on, because I actually haven't seen it.
It's not that great. But okay, we are going to wrap things up with a rapid fire round. We've got I think about 10 movies on here.
All right.
And all we have to go off of is the name, what we know about them, and the Rotten Tomatoes score that I've got in front of me.
Yeah.
And we are going to vote guilty or not guilty. If it ends up being guilty, we're going to signify that with a... And if it's not guilty, we're going to signify that with a... All right. Otherwise, they'll have to languish in limbo if we don't agree, which is terrible too. So the first film that we have is The Bye Bye Man. The Bye Bye Man is famously known for being a horror film that was originally going to be rated R, and about 2.5 weeks before the movie came out, it got edited down to a PG-13.
Wow.
It's sitting at a 23% on Rotten Tomatoes.
It's awful.
Scott?
Off of the name of the film alone, I'm gonna hit this button right here.
Well, you're not supposed to hit it yet. You're supposed to wait till we till we both say.
I declared.
Well,
are you gonna say not guilty?
Whatever you say, Scarlett. Yeah, I'm gonna say guilty too.
Okay,
so,
well there you go.
There we go. And that's just because I've heard from people that it was absolutely.
Also, that's a really fucking dumb name for a horror movie. Can we just agree on that?
Absolutely, 100%.
That's awful.
Yes. Next up we have The Shack. The Shack is the movie where Sam Worthington, his daughter, goes missing on a trip one day, and he ends up. I don't know if he finds out that he thinks she's been killed, and he ends up going out to a shack in the middle of nowhere to kill himself, and he's greeted by basically the Father, Son, and the Holy Ghost.
What? I've never heard of this before.
Oh yeah, no, you've heard of it. They had the trailer and everything. He goes on like the fishing trip with some friends, and he turns around and his daughter's gone, and so he gets really distraught and gets like this weird letter and like goes out to the shack and is really depressed and everything, and is like, oh, I can't go on, and he ends up like meeting somebody in the shack who's supposed to basically be like Jesus, and ends up spending like the weekend learning about life and stuff like that. And I guess like the little twist that they have in there is that he's also able to find out who the person was who killed his daughter, who's like a serial killer in the area.
What?
I don't. Yes. But it's also like a big faith film.
Maybe that's why I haven't heard of it. I don't know. I've literally never heard of this movie.
Yeah. It's got a 21% on Rotten Tomatoes. In addition to Sam Worthington, it's got Octavia Spencer and Travis Tritt. I think that's who that is.
It looks like Tim McGraw is in this.
Oh, sorry, that's what I meant. They're country music singer people.
Yeah,
they bleed together for me.
Totally.
Yes. Which one's the one with the hat?
All of them. Wow. Yeah.
Blake Shelton is not the
sexiest man alive. Jesus, what a joke! What a joke.
Okay, what is your vote?
I have never heard of this until you talked about it, but I'm already not interested. So not guilty. Guilty.
Okay, I'm going to say guilty too.
Boom.
All right, next one is a fun one. It is Top Cat Begins.
What?
Top Cat, of course, is the famous like 4th or 9th tier like Hanna-Barbera type cat who had I think he was a thief.
Yeah.
It was kind of yellowish with the his little top hat and everything. But it's a CGI animated film that came out in basically every single country but America. When it came to America, it was Redbox exclusive.
I didn't know those existed.
Yeah, they have Redbox exclusive. That's basically before it goes out to DTV on like Vudu and a whole bunch of different places. Redbox will get it for like 3 weeks, and they'll usually grab movies that played internationally and made some money that they think they can make a quick buck off of. So a CGI animated film like this, they're basically hoping that some babysitter or some parents like, they've seen everything else. Let's just get them something different for once. Well, but it is sitting at a 17% on Rotten Tomatoes.
I don't ever want this to exist. I have no idea what it is. It looks very weird. I'm going to say guilty.
All right. Guilty too.
3 for 3.
All right. The next one is another animated film, staying in the same wheelhouse. The third Smurfs movie, Smurfs: The Lost Village.
Oh my God.
It has a 37% on Rotten Tomatoes. It made $45 million at the box office because people hate themselves and they have children.
How much did it cost?
It doesn't say on here. But I'd probably say roughly around the same amount.
I can't believe there are 3 Smurfs movies. Didn't the first one just come out?
No, the first one came out like 3-4 years ago.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah, they've got like 4 or 5 Romeo and Juliet movies too.
Here's the thing about the Smurfs. I am going to declare that the Smurfs were never good. Even the original cartoon, it was always bad, and I don't understand why they're a thing.
We're just picking on this one right here.
No, so I'm picking on the Smurfs in general.
Guilty or not guilty, you know?
The Smurfs as a whole are guilty. Ergo, this movie is also guilty.
Okay. I'm very frightened, so I'm just going to say guilty too. All right. Since you mentioned movies based off of old TV shows, we would be remiss if we didn't mention Chips from earlier this year.
Oh my God.
With Dax Shepard and
poor Dax
Michael
Shepard.
He directed the movie. You can't say poor this guy.
Maybe he lost a bet.
He's the one who decided that he was going to direct this movie and that he was going to then have himself star in the movie.
I think he lost a bet or something.
You want to know who lost a bet? Whoever put together Dax Shepard's career.
Oh. Hey, he's married to Veronica Mars, and I like them both.
I'm not talking about anything about him as a person. I'm just saying, have you seen Dax Shepard's sheet on IMDb? That you read that awful. and you feel sorry for somebody.
I'm sure it's awful.
You could be like, oh, you've been in Idiocracy. You have friends who should be putting you in better things, and yet you still decide to direct Chips.
Yeah. Did anybody know what Chips was? Like, at least Baywatch was a thing that people knew about.
Who was in Chips? Tell me one person who was in Chips.
I have no idea. I have no fucking clue.
I guess you do.
No, I don't.
Eric Estrada.
I didn't know that. I never watched Chips.
That's what Eric Estrada's known for. That's how he started out, was Chips.
Okay.
You just thought that Eric Estrada was just this weird guy who kept on popping up everywhere?
I don't think about Eric Estrada very often.
That's kind of rude. It's kind of rude. You should write that man like an apology letter right now.
Eric, if you're listening, I'm almost sorry.
He seems like a very genuinely nice man.
I'm sure he is.
And you don't even know the one thing that he's known for.
Sorry, I was not really into my 70s.
But you knew that it was based off a TV show.
Yeah, I knew there existed a show called Chips.
Did you just say a shit show?
No, I just yes, I did.
That's
I did
on a whole new level. I mean, you could be honest, but wow, that's being really honest. It's a show that I know nothing about and I've never seen, but it's a shit show.
I mean, isn't that what we're doing with all these movies right now?
Yeah, because we're talking about the movies. We're not talking about a TV show that was popular for several people. A show that ran for 139 episodes in 6 seasons.
Shit.
Exactly.
Damn, Chips. I guess that was there wasn't as much TV back then, so.
This is the late 70s and the 80s when there was nothing but TV.
It was not peak TV. Chips would not make it this day and age.
You're talking about that it was on around the same time that you had the Incredible Hulk, that you had the $6 Billion Men, that you had the Bionic Woman, that you had Dynasty, that you had Dallas. We can go on and on.
Those shows are all bad.
But I'm saying, think about how popular they were at that time. You were saying that there wasn't much TV at the time. There was a shit ton of TV. Tons of people were watching TV because that's before people had home video. So TV was a large way for people to, connect on that level. Magnum PI, the A-Team, Knight Rider.
Okay. Is there more TV than there was then?
Because it was.
That's what I meant.
That's
what I meant.
Well, yeah, but I'm saying
you had less options to choose from. Ergo, it's bad.
You had less options to choose from to watch at home outside of what was on TV. That's not saying that they didn't have a lot of TV that was on at the time.
Okay.
You just don't like chips.
No, I don't.
It's different, just being, calling the TV show a shit show.
I didn't actually call it a shit show. I just slipped my words as I was talking.
You just slipped your words and said shit show?
Yeah. I stuttered on the word show, and you interpreted that as shit show, and I just went with it because I thought it was funny.
If you were referring to the movie, that's okay. I can understand that.
But you haven't seen the movie. How do you know it's a shit show?
Seems like you were being mean to Eric Estrada and Larry Wilcox, and that doesn't seem right.
I was not mean. I don't know who they are. Michael Pena's in this movie? Poor Michael Pena.
Well, he's friends with Dak Shepard.
I guess so. Can we just call this guilty? Movie? Can we just call this guilty? This is a terrible looking movie.
You drag people down with you. Apparently.
Did anybody go see this movie?
Probably. The weird thing was they had an activation, I guess is what they call them nowadays. But at South by Southwest, the Voodoo Donuts, that's in downtown Austin, was taken over and had the giant chip symbol on it. They had it dressed up to look like cops were hanging out there the whole time. They had people who were dressed in Chips uniforms outside the building. And then on all the TVs inside, they had the very short minute and 20-second trailer on a loop.
That sounds awful.
It was.
But you know what they say?
Still terrible.
Chip happens. Chip happens.
You're guilty for saying that. Just hit the button.
I'm just reading the poster.
All right. Next one we have is Collide. Collide is it would kind of be considered a direct-to-video film. I think that it came out in maybe a couple handful of theaters. It's that weird DTV notion that we were talking about, where you have a movie that's out in basically almost every other country, and then it gets a very small release in America. It's got several names in it. It's got Nicholas Hoult. It's got Ben Kingsley. It's got Anthony Hopkins. I'm trying to read the poster because I know that the girl is well known. Why it's
Felicity Jones.
Yes, Felicity Jones. Yes, but it is sitting at a 23% on Rotten Tomatoes, and it's just supposed to be mind-numbing.
What? I am fascinated by this movie. I kind of want to see it.
Yes.
There's a lot of big names in this thing.
IndieWire writer David Ehrlich said, the kind of low-rent action movie that only exists because everybody involved knew that nobody in the Western world would ever see it.
Sounds like everyone got a paycheck. Good for them.
Yeah. But that's how the movie feels.
Yeah, I don't know how I don't know what to do on this one, because on the one hand it looks like every single other shitty action movie ever, but it has a bunch of cool people in it.
Guilty.
Pretty torn here. Okay, fine.
Okay, and we are going to wind up with this last one. That's very contentious for lots of people on the internet. If anyone's even listening to this, then I know that there's a chance that if they're upset, they might be upset at this one. But the final one is going to be The Book of Henry.
Neither of us have seen The Book of Henry.
Neither of us have seen The Book of Henry. I think I might buy this and give it to my wife on Christmas just to see how she reacts. and then be like, well, neither of us have seen it, so we can't say if it's terrible, and then watch it. But yeah, Book of Henry is probably one of the most divisive movies that I've heard about this year. A whole bunch of my friends and a whole bunch of people that I completely respect say that it is the worst thing this year. Just completely wrong and boneheaded up and down. And then there's friends that I have who saw the movie and said, I don't understand that. That film was absolutely delightful.
Yeah. I mean, this is the movie that cost Colin Trevorrow's job. He can't direct Star Wars anymore because he made this movie. And that alone has me interested. I really want to see this movie. I'm going to say not guilty. I think this seems like it's going to be the kind of so bad it's good film that I will love.
Yeah, I will admit that I am very, very curious.
Yeah, everything I've read, everything I've seen, is holy shit, really? Really?
Yes. It sounds just so bad that I want to know more about it, that I want in my life. So I'm going to say not guilty.
Got one.
Yes. I feel like we should almost try to do one more.
Let's do it
at random. I feel a little bad that we've only had one so far. That was like, hey, you can enter the pearly gates.
We're very
Everything
judgmental.
Else, go die in a fire. Oh no, that's going to be a negative one, so I'll skip that because I was going to do the Nut Job 2, Nutty by Nature, which is animated children's film about. Yeah, there we go. Go. Oh, here's one. We will mention it for 2 seconds. So if we don't want to go any further, we don't have to. But The Evil Within popped up on here. Did you watch it?
I have not seen it. No.
We'll just keep it since.
I am intrigued by that. I'm sure it's terrible. Okay. I read every single one of the 20 Birth Movies Death reviews, and it didn't look good.
Okay. Here's a name that everybody knows: the Emoji Movie. Yeah, I think that.
How about Justice League?
We haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, I mean, we're both going to go see that.
When this movie, yeah, we have tickets. You're going, and right now it's 11:15 on Thursday the 16th. You're going on Friday.
This time tomorrow, I will have seen. I will have confirmed that there is a movie called Justice League, that it is real, and it is out.
Yes. And I am going to see it at 9 a.m. on Saturday because that's when my wife felt safe going to see it.
Have you ever done the Draft House cereal party thing?
No.
There probably won't have one for that movie, but I saw Kubo and the Two Strings at a cereal party at Draft House, and it was amazing. I ate so much cereal, and it was all sugary.
What does that have to do with?
Well, you're seeing it at 9 a.m. on a Saturday, so I thought it might be a cereal party.
Oh, I'm not going to the Alamo.
Well, I didn't know that.
Yeah. Okay, here's a quick one. I know you've seen it, so we'll go off your judgment on it. The Dark Tower. It's very adamant.
Yeah. So I love Stephen King. Dark Tower series, one of my favorite series of books. That movie was a piece of shit. That's all there is to be said.
Okay. Pirates of the Caribbean, Dead Man Tell No Tales.
Awful.
You got a button for it. There we go.
The thing about that is I think the first 3 movies were actually interesting.
Yep.
And when Gore was doing them, Gore Verbinski, and then he left, and then they got even worse.
I'd say the first 2. I don't necessarily.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think the third movie's good, but it's fascinating in its weirdness to me. The scope of it gets so absurd that.
Yes, I really like the weird world that what's his face, that Jack Davenport is in the second one.
Yeah.
As Carrington, and just the weird path they take him on.
So many crazy.
I know how I feel about this one, so I think you're going to be able to tell too. The Mummy.
I'm finding the button, but it's going to be the
All right.
negative one.
I'm glad that you were able to announce it. Just so you know.
Yeah. I didn't know how long it was going to take for the app to open.
Did you see King Arthur?
No, I did not.
Oh, you should just buzz that one.
Okay, I'll trust you.
It's think of the worst instincts of a Guy Ritchie film.
Man.
Eating itself to the point where I'd rather see... Oh, God, why am I blanking on it now? That I'd rather see the really shitty Kabbalah one that he did.
Huh. Yeah.
You know the one I'm talking about, right?
I can't think of the name, but I know what you're talking about. But I liked the trailer. The trailer looked exactly Guy Ritchie and weird enough for me to like it. But yeah, then everything I read after it came out said it was. No,
it's a film that mentions that like nobody knows about the legend or anything, and all of a sudden people are just like, oh, that's right, we're supposed to stand around this rock that popped up out of the ground and has the sword, just because we were told to come and guard it, even though we know nothing about its existence whatsoever.
Of course.
They do have a female character who's in 90% of the movie, but is never given a name.
That sounds about right.
It's it's just the worst instincts of any of his films, to the max.
How do we feel about Charlie Hunnam?
I haven't seen Lost City of Z. I know lots of people really liked it. I enjoyed him years ago in Undeclared, so I keep on wanting to give him a chance. But
yeah, I liked Lost City of Z. I didn't like him in it. He was fine. He wasn't the best part of the film.
Yeah. Okay, we've got one last one. I think it's going to be easy to guess how we feel about it just based on the film, but I completely forgot that it came out this year, was Fist Fight.
That's another movie I saw on the airplane. I just remembered that.
Oh, you did see that one?
Yeah, I did. Oh. I did. It's not good, but there's funny parts in it. It made me laugh at parts. And
okay. Monster Trucks? Did you watch Monster Trucks?
I did not see Monster Trucks.
Okay. Monster Trucks is sitting at a 31%.
Do you want to say guilty?
I'm fine.
It looks weird. It looks weird. I kind of want to see it. I kind of want to see it.
I haven't watched it at this point, and we've mentioned plenty of other films that I would rather see.
Fine. Well, I'm not. Oh no, my hand slipped. I guess it's innocent.
That's great. The other reason why we decided to mention these films is because while this is going to be hitting on Friday, if you see the length of this episode, we were hoping that people, and we're going to have in the show description, so hopefully you read that Thanksgiving is coming up. So we did a longer episode so that you could listen to it right before Thanksgiving. Or if you listen to it in the couple days leading up to Thanksgiving, you would have ideas of films to choose and watch and torture the rest of your family with. Because that's what Thanksgiving's about, right?
Yeah, when your uncle starts talking about Donald Trump, you tell him to go watch Smurfs: The Lost Village.
Hey, Grandpa, I got an idea. Let's check out this Book of Henry film. So we've got plenty of films that we've mentioned to you. You know, choose one. Just take a chance. Because I mean, the worst thing that happens is you have family that sits there awkwardly in silence the whole film because nobody wants to admit that it's a terrible movie you're watching, or somebody laughs at a time that's not funny in the film, and you realize that everyone else is disliking it as much as you are, then you end up just making fun of it and having a good time. Like, it brings everybody together because you now have this story that you watch this really shitty film together, and it'll bring everybody together and you'll have a great time. You know, it'll save Thanksgiving.
Are you saying that terrible movies could bring the country together?
I'm not saying that. I'm not a fucking crazy person. I'm saying a small family unit of, maybe 4 to 15 people.
Whoa.
I'm not saying millions of people.
15 people. We're all watching Book of Henry. That's probably as many that went to the theater.
It paid a decent amount of money.
Yeah, I mean, I was exaggerating, but
exactly. Well, Scott, where can everybody find you online?
I can be found on Twitter at ScottDaily85. You can also find all the other podcasts I do, including our weekly non-terrible movies film podcast and all that stuff at dailyplanetfilms.com.
Nice. I can be found on Twitter as well at Adrian Torres. Next week, right before Thanksgiving on Wednesday, there will be 2 reviews that are going to be dropping on Boom Howdy that I did for Coco and 3 Billboards Outside of Ebbing, Missouri. They're both fun films. I, of course, like 3 Billboards a lot more, but Coco is very cute. While it does start to border on the predictable in some of the story elements in the second half, the joy, passion, and just general excitement that the filmmakers have help elevate the story that they're telling and really allows it to soar. So it's a solid 3.5 to 4-star type film. I kind of fall back and forth. It's lots of fun. It's a lot better than the recent ones that they've put out, but it's not top tier. You know, it's not Inside Out. It's not a Toy Story 3. It's not Monsters, Inc. You know, it's not the ones that you put in the upper echelon. It'd be in the tier underneath that because it's lots of fun.
Awesome. Yeah. It's going to be a very busy movie weekend for me, so I'm going to try to see 3 Billboards on top of Justice League. And then, what was the other one? Crap. I'm seeing Coco on Tuesday.
Lady Bird.
Yeah, Lady Bird. I'm seeing Coco on
That's
Tuesday. Yeah, okay. Okay, there we go.
And I'm going to try to track down the Antonio Banderas Gun-Shy movie.
Cool.
Which you were aware of that one, right?
Vaguely. I don't think I've seen the trailer.
So what? He's an aging and pampered rock star. His supermodel wife is kidnapped by renegades, and so he decides that he's going to try to win her back himself. And he's got like a really weird 80s rocker fright wig on. And then it's directed by Simon West.
Why are you going to see this movie?
Because I'm very curious too, and it's got a 0 on Rotten Tomatoes. And the guy who directed, or what's it called? Who directed Con Air, The General's Daughter, When a Stranger Calls, The Mechanic, Expendables 2, produced, what's it called? Black Hawk Down, directed Lara Croft Tomb Raider, is now stuck doing like direct-to-video films.
Huh.
Yeah.
Well, you'll have to let us know how that is.
Absolutely. On behalf of Scott and I, everybody in America that's listening to this, happy Thanksgiving. To everyone else around the world, happy movie day to you. And we'll see you soon.
Bye-bye. Boss Baby's great.
No, it's not.
Sorry, I already stopped recording.
Yeah, I know. That's amazing. It's amazing.
I don't listen to fate. I'm a cold soul survivor. I've been known not to wait. In a land of confusion, no one's ready to face. If it's love that you're after, then you're in the wrong place, baby. Soldier. Soldier.